Hello and welcome to our weekend debate programme. Another specialist one this time. We've got people involved in the entertainment business, the hotel business and past and present, and just everything that links back to what happened with the protests in Tynwald outside this week. And so let me get my panel to introduce themselves. Andy.
Yeah, Andy Gibbs. I'm a director of Barbary Coast, Jack's, A&J Quality Butchers and Reactive Construction.
So you got fingers in a lot of pies there, really. Yeah.
Literally.
Like, yes.
Brian Stowell, reluctant, failed politician. I own a number of properties, property portfolio. So I'm a landlord and a farm, and that all keeps me in the life of luxury.
And of course, really, what brings you of interest, probably this one, will be the Mount Murray connection and building and
I tried
running
to forget about that.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, it caught fire, you know. Caught fire, you know. And the health and safety executive looked at me and said, "Oh, you're managing director," and they went off into the sunset. And they looked at Albert and they said, "Oh, you're the owner," and they went off into the sunset. And then they picked on Roy the roofer and sent him to prison for 2 years. It's a good and fair society that we live in.
Good. We're going to have a good debate here today, Andy.
Yeah. And I'm Andy Saunders from Quids Inn and representative of the Licensed Fixtures Association and the working class, madam.
Okay,
member of the panel.
What's the best way to describe your sector? What would you?
Well, we're catering and leisure. Yeah,
struggling, going under.
Struggling at the moment. But we're catering and leisure, especially when it suits the government, and hospitality when they want to try and convince everybody we have had the fair share, the same amount of money as the hotels.
Wow. Okay, well, should we start with this whole thing? I mean, it's been a journey, guys, but it's been building up to this demonstration. But let's go right back. Who would like to pick up on this? Who wants to explain the situation you've all been in to someone, not maybe you directly, but these two, on this whole situation with lockdowns and compensation or grants?
I mean, obviously, the lockdowns hurt. And we had the advice from the government, or pleas from the government, really, to pay staff for, salary support, which we did throughout our group. I think through the group we employed about 150 people. And we paid everybody salary support. And it cost us money to do that, because obviously NI contributions and tax and what have you, that actually cost you money. So it was a struggle. I was just adding up the figures before I came down here so I could say what the figures were. And it's quite frightening to say, actually. It's over £3 million down in turnover.
Since the first lockdown?
Since the lockdown, first lockdown.
And you were paying this because there was no grants for you? Or what happened here?
We had obviously the salary support, which obviously went to the employees. And as I said, it costs us money. But the grants that we got were the same as a one-man band got, which was the £3,000, the £1,500, £1,000. And then obviously the rates one that we got was a little bit better because it was more suited to the size of the premise.
Yeah. That you had. And I think this is right across the sector. Our salary support was very much geared towards during lockdowns. For example, if we go back to the recent times, salary support for our sector was turned off on the 23rd of May, which means as we moved into the TT area, where we would be considerably down, we've had our salary support stopped. So we don't actually generally get salary support.
But don't they look at what should have been your income, and TT would be massive, right?
No, it's based over every 4 weeks, and then they turn it on and off depending on what your sector is. Now we are generally the second to last or third to last sector that get turned off. For tourism and laundrettes have still got their salary support in action, but ours is turned off as we got to the periods where we were going to be busy. And that happened also at the end of lockdown number 1. We had 3 days after lockdown number 1, salary support was turned off for our sector.
These guys are the lucky ones.
Yeah. What?
I'm one of these poor sod landlords, and the Chief Minister came out and effectively said, you don't have to pay anybody if you rent. Don't pay your rent, because we won't either. And those rich, swiney landlords, they can just lump it. Let's get the bills out to them.
My landlord's had all his rent and made
a lot of my tenants, I'm very fortunate, have paid me but there is a significant number that have just taken him at his word.
Okay, let's come back to that side of things. That's interesting, but let's stay on this side because that clearly that's what led to this demonstration, I suppose. That you felt hard done by.
Well, it's we're both quite lucky in terms of we've both been around for a long time. We've been successful businesses, so it's been a very hard struggle. But I'm hopeful both of us will survive through it. But there are a lot of smaller businesses, newer formed businesses in our industry, and it's crucial to our island to keep these, to keep nightlife and so on going, because that's what we're issued with a drain of our youth.
Well, again, we can maybe talk about the whole situation with nightlife and everything a bit later. But I want to get into this a bit more. 3 million quid.
Yeah, over 3 million.
I mean,
turnover.
Go on.
Turnover.
So what happens?
What happens? You never get it back. Once it's gone, isn't it? I mean, I'm not here. I'm not asking for big handouts. First of all I kept asking the government was, I mean, IONI and stuff like that. I just asked for a longer period to pay it back.
Yeah.
We owe taxes. I'm not after.
The door to Alf Cannon's always open, is it?
Well, I've met once.
Were you in the public gallery on Tuesday?
I was outside talking to you guys.
We went in. Obviously, we all went into the public gallery afterwards, and Mr. Cannon had a very robust response for us, didn't he? Very aggressive attack with some figures that just don't correlate to what happened. What has happened in our industry is quoting 30 million going into our industry so far. It's just not the fact. It's not the facts. I don't know where he's pulled that figures from. Yeah,
well, I'd like to know who's had that 30 million, because I certainly haven't had it.
Well, he was getting the blame. I mean, all the banners outside was definitely, let's point this at Alf Cannon.
He's our Treasury Minister.
Yes.
Well, when you're at the top, I'm the same. I kicked the next one down, and then they kicked the one after that. So that's the way life works.
Yeah.
But we've got a dual society, haven't we? If you work for government, financially, this hasn't affected you at all.
Well, did anyone get furloughed in government at all?
No.
Because I can ask that question early on.
I asked the question specifically at a business agency, Department of Enterprise committee that we had regarding our. And I asked the question specifically: has any civil servant had any salary support or any reduction in payment? And the answer was quite totally no.
From what I can gather, from what I've heard, that actual government salaries and wages have doubled since the pandemic because they're all doing overtime.
Yes.
They've all been redeployed to 111. That's what I keep hearing, of course.
So
that if
the actual wage bill...
we're talking about the civil servants working in Enterprise and Treasury. They're all working considerable overtime.
Don't get me wrong, they are. They're doing the work, they've got to be paid.
Well, you say that, but there are a number that have just been sent home on full pay.
Well, true.
Right? There's somebody that I know rather well.
Oh, yeah, so this is actually not just heard, but you know.
This is somebody that I know very well.
Yeah.
I was almost giving the sex away there, they were sent home 2 weeks out of 3 to keep the social distancing. So they were going home to isolate, but that went on for months.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's what they have to
on
do.
Full pay.
But if they have to, they have to. I mean, there's no way around that, is there?
Well, there isn't. But who's going to make the shortfall at the end of the day? It's like, I find it horrendous when I drive along the promenade. There's a sign at the end of the prom, and it's the Department of Infrastructure apologise for the delays. Who in the Department of Infrastructure has apologised for anything ever?
We haven't had any apologies, have we?
We will talk about DOI. Remind me to get on to DOI.
We'll get back to that.
Yeah. I believe they're bricking up your front entrance.
Oh, why not?
May as well.
You're just stirring it up, mate. Okay, let's just come back. I'm trying to do just one bit of, because I think it's really important that give you guys your platform here. Because a lot of people say, you're all right, you've got loads of money, you've just built this, you built that, you got... Okay, but you were taking the money, and therefore you take the risk with it to some degree.
Of course, yeah.
But we're not an industry that ever took money from government. We're not, hospitality's never been a cap-in-hand style of industry. We've always funded ourselves.
Just remind me here, are these two guys exempt from tax or VAT or anything like that? They've had their businesses for many years.
Millions we pay in.
You haven't been paying into the pot, have you?
Of course.
Have you?
Exactly.
You as well.
Again, seriously.
You talk the NI or
I find that amazing.
Over
we're
$1 million a
huge
year.
VAT
You'd
generators.
think you'd get a bob or two out of it, having paid that.
Over $1 million a year.
Yeah,
He's just been very sarcastic. He
I
put the
know.
money in, you should get some money back. I think is where you're going with in a sarcastic way.
And don't worry about it, because it's been handled so badly, you'll be able to put money in for years to come. In fact, for the rest of our lives.
Well, that's it. That's one of the things. Most of our injury is so much considerable money, and I think it's 57% of the. This is from the government's own figures. 57% of the debt taken on the last 18 months by our industry has been funded by friends and family,
Wow.
not the government. And that's putting people like myself who are. Just run a smaller business, that means I'm going to be working so much longer just to get back onto track.
Well, the beauty of it is at least you can say you've got an easy life, just this 37.5-hour week, weekends off.
Oh, yeah.
You're really enjoying yourself.
He is so sarcastic. It was just watch him. Okay, we get that, but we've had 2 TT misses. You know,
Huge.
I mean,
Massive.
when you heard the news the first time around, let's just start with that one. I mean, you know, what impact did it have then?
I think that had more of an impact and more disheartening than the second one, because we kind of knew the second one wasn't going to happen. So, I remember back to the foot and mouth one. That was horrendous. Because I mean, TT is not the be all and end all of our business. It's not the mainstay, but it certainly puts the fat in the on the.
I kind of disagree with that, Andy, because it's part and parcel of our business.
Well, it is part and parcel.
It's how we fund the Novembers and the Januaries and Februarys.
Yeah, well, that's what I was just going to get on to say.
And keep our
It puts
business
the
running
fat on
and
it
fall through them.
to survive the winter.
Yeah.
And that is the problem.
It's predictable each year. You know you're going to have a great TT regardless. I
Yeah.
suppose the visitors turn up, which the
If it
government.
rains,
It's not unreasonable to put it in the budget.
Well, this is where we kind of
budget for that turnover.
Well, I kind of look at up until this new rate support that's just been released and changed around yesterday. Really, my business grants were totaling to about the equivalent. What we'd had the whole way through the whole pandemic was about the equivalent of 1 day's take in TT week for my business.
Yeah.
So, and not even close for Andy.
yeah.
Really.
I mean,
Wow, that's
race week, I took less all week than what I would actually take on Mad Sunday,
yeah.
just in Jacks.
And I was under 10% of my usual TT turnover.
But good news ahead. I mean, we might have a summer yet of some description. Do you not think? Although there's no more TT Classic or anything like that, I suppose.
I mean, we've got to, at some point we've got to get on with life, haven't we? We've got to. It's here to stay. I think, isn't it? As long as everybody gets vaccinated. I'm not an anti-vaxxer.
And in a way,
They've
we are in
done
a
well.
better position than the UK in many aspects, like Scotland and wherever, Northern Ireland, I think, still having much more restrictions. Here we are, we're back to almost open, but again, I want to talk about that later. But, how was it during the full
My worry is the October, November, and then obviously December will kind of take care of itself, and then January, February, before the start of the new season next year. That's my problem.
But we've had huge support from the public. They've really come out the public are brilliant on the Isle of Man, and they got rid of this virus for us really quickly. They did the right things to do that, and then they came out and supported us, especially after lockdown one. The support for the businesses was massive.
It was.
And they were out. Anyway, unfortunately for our particular position, it wasn't a great staycation market because there was nowhere to stay near us, and it was all dug up. But for the rest of the island, it was a really good situation. So lots and lots of people did well after lockdown 1.
Yeah.
It didn't come quite as strongly after lockdown 2, and there was a definite difference after lockdown 3.
Yeah.
Where people were still coming out the weekends, but there was no weekend spend, weekday spend at all anymore, and that's an issue.
And you've also got the issue of people working from home still, and so lunch times have flattened because people are not in the town.
Okay.
And then obviously the promenade is, it's another thing.
Ryan, you watch this from the sidelines, but I mean, how do you handle this?
Seething about lockdown too.
Oh.
I mean, February, I got up on the Saturday morning and went to an agricultural sale in St John's. I met up with the whole of the farming community, hundreds of people in the major car park there behind the Tynwald Hotel. I get shaking hands, we're crushed together at an auction trying to hear the auctioneer. Then I get in the car And on the way home, as I drive past hundreds of people that are walking up and down Douglas seafront because it's a beautiful day, I find, oh, we've got an outbreak in the community. And they've known about it.
That's
And
what I
then they
tweeted
put-
in the morning and got.
Yeah. And I'm driving along, and there's hoteliers got weddings, receptions booked, and all sorts of things, and they've got chefs, spreads put out, food everywhere, and
But
That's
it wasn't compulsory, and some places went ahead with weddings.
compulsory because they hadn't put the legislation in place to extend the lockdown.
We've been over this a few times, but I mean, I got notice early on, and it was gold standard my tip-off.
Yeah.
So I went on
Yeah.
Twitter with it.
I remember.
Got massive abuse from people. I mean, people, but they just said, "Don't! How dare you upset my day? How dare you tell us about this?
dare you?"
We want to wait until the chief minister tells us on Monday. You can't make this stuff up." But 2 hours later, they went with it. 2 hours later, and then there was so mixed messaging about you shouldn't go out, but you can because we haven't got the laws.
But we had it in our schools the week before.
Yeah.
We had it in our schools
Yeah.
the week
Yeah.
before. Now, once it was in the schools, we had issues.
Yeah.
The contact tracing wasn't going to keep up, or didn't appear
Well,
to keep
contact. I mean, that was a non-starter from day one, wasn't it? I mean, we went from one person, a steam packet employee, who infected 1 or 2 people on the Isle of Man, and within a few days we had 1,000 people.
Because they weren't isolated, because they couldn't isolate, and that's another story
No,
in
wait a
itself.
minute,
I mean,
how
yeah,
come?
don't blame
Are
them.
they
I
a
feel sorry for the
separate
Steam Packet
entity?
people, I think.
Are they a separate entity?
No, but I feel sorry for the
it's-
guys, because they were getting so much blame personally. And that,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you shouldn't
No.
do, you
Yeah, but
shouldn't
we
do that.
knew, I was told and didn't believe it, 12 months earlier, that the crews are mixing on the vessel.
Yeah.
And I was down in London, came back in the February at the outbreak of this, and they were told it's not a lockdown if people are mixing on the vessels. Yeah, but somehow the excuse was, well, when you're in international waters, you can do whatever you want.
Well, it came up many times about this Steam Packet question. I think we asked it from time to time. We were always told that they weren't, but it wasn't until we got the bombshell, which I got the confirmation from the Steam Packet in that press conference. That
the one you got
we have to
slated
be.
for.
We do have to.
I
Be
was
fair
just-
to
I was
the
just
Steam
naughty
Packet.
question.
I'm the bad boy.
You do have to be fair to the Steam Packet. They did very well. It's
Yeah.
not the Steam Packet's issues. The
Yeah, I
issues
think
are in
it
the
was,
government.
Yeah.
Looking after and making sure that they were following directions.
I say, I mean,
So
they got
Yeah.
some terrible
it's
times,
always
didn't
the
they?
government's.
Terrible time. But you know,
If you go back to lockdown 2, we had our health minister saying what a great idea it was for 6 or 7 students to come back from different parts of the UK, rent an apartment down the road from here, and stay together. Now, obviously, you've got young people coming in, lots of asymptomatic people. There was obviously going to be an issue at some stage where you'd have asymptomatic passing throughout, and as everybody came out on day 14, someone would still have it.
But when they announce a lockdown, what happens with you guys? You know, my experience at Mount Murray, if they slap a lockdown on, I've got a load of stock
Exactly,
there that's destined for
Well, that other
for
one,
the
when
drain.
they gave us the 250 quid. I mean,
£250
That was,
250
for-
per person.
No.
The infamous Saturday.
For the
infamous
for the-
Oh, the
flip-flop
Saturday that you had to
The
shut.
Saturday, well, they advised us to shut. We did the right thing. There was 1 or 2 that didn't.
Yeah, there were.
But we did the right thing because we were asked to do that. So we, as responsible people, Andy shot as well. You know, we decided to shut. I think we even shot earlier the day before, when it was announced.
I cancelled my events on the Friday and so on.
And what sort of costs are we talking about? How much you have to chuck? Was this food particularly, I suppose?
Well, it was
the
a Saturday, so
perishable
for Jackson Barbry's case, you're talking over 30 grand.
It's a lot of chickens.
It
Well,
is.
it's not just
Well,
chickens,
oh no,
red stock
sorry,
as
that was
well.
the take. That
Oh,
we lost out.
I'm thinking about you.
But the waste that
Wastage
was
is-
thrown away, in thousands.
Yeah.
Just there's me having just for throwing away the live beer. That's that's considerable expense for just my small.
This is a lockdown that should have never happened, right? I mean, I think everyone's pretty
Yeah,
agreeable on this.
Yeah.
I think lockdown 2 and lockdown 3 both should have been
Should never have happened.
sorted in
Handled
advance.
differently.
But
Whoever
people,
made the decision really should get an award.
he did get an award.
Oh, not the one I was thinking of.
We might get onto that as well. I don't know. I mean, the thoughts going through your head though when that happened must have been horrendous.
That was when I really started to panic. We got through lockdown 1, we knew, but when lockdown 2 happened, that was when I started to feel the stress of it. When lockdown 3 came on, I was really thinking I'm going to lose my business, which is 30 years of my life down the drain.
Yeah.
Now, luckily, we're out again.
Yeah.
No.
Same for you, I guess.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, fortunately, I've got a very supportive bank, and and you know, and we did have quite a bit of reserves that we could fall back on. But
did you take away stuff and that sort of that?
Yeah, we did. But
make an option.
The takeaway was really just to keep the morale of the staff going. Really, because lockdown one, don't get me wrong, in Barbary was fantastic, and I actually thought, Christ, if we carry on doing this level, you know, we'll be all right here. Like, you know, but obviously as more and more started doing it, it died. You know, and we was doing half the amount. So, and it was just really, it was wiping its face. Really, you know.
That was kind of the thing, wasn't it? You know, I saw that with other businesses in the restaurants. They pop up and your first few weeks of trading be really good, and then once all your regulars had a couple of hits of your particular menu, they're going back. I mean, lots of other people were struggling for money in lots of other industries as well. So
we did it at Jack's, and it was really popular for the Sunday roast. So that was worth doing it. We were actually doing more on a Sunday than what we would seated in because we could do more. You know, because you could only seat so many in a day. I think Mother's Day, I think it was. We did over 800, and that's delivered. You know,
yes,
they haven't delivered them.
But
I mean,
and hot.
I mean, we had to become taxi drivers and everything. Like, you know, all the staff. Like, you know, some of these Manx names and roads and whatever. You know, I mean, I've been here 31 years.
You need your Google Maps, but that doesn't work necessarily.
Well,
does it? Just finish this bit off. I mean, you know, you're not in the hotel business anymore, but I mean, we've done hotels in the past, but this must be one of those things you never could have seen coming. You know, what would it be like if you suddenly seen all your clientele stop overnight?
Well, it's hit every business, and just at this moment, we're not seeing the true picture. There's a lot of businesses out there that don't even know they're in trouble yet. You know, some people don't get a full grasp of the finance of their own business. You know, you get your head down, you're working, you can't be bothered with all the books.
That's why I'm saying now that I fear for October, November, and January, February next year. That's when I'm going to start worrying, because
is this when the government should do go out and eat scheme like Jersey did, while UK did?
I mean, they are talking about doing that, but my worry about that is because I've actually spoken to Tim Council about it the other day, and he mentioned that they're going to do it. For some reason, they're not going to do it for a Monday, but they're on about doing it for a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Well, giving the punters some cash or vouchers.
I think you go out and spend it, and you get, I don't know, you clock in or something, whatever, and you get a voucher from us, and then you get it claimed back. And if you go out again during that week, you get more money back.
So Cannon has listened a bit, maybe.
Maybe, well, yeah. I mean, but the only problem with that is is if people then suddenly shift to coming out during the week, and maybe not so many come out.
Yeah, you're right.
Weekend, so
well, the other issue, that 50% of our industry is wet-led pubs, and that's not going to be spent in wet-led pubs, and
that is another
Tuesday,
issue.
Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah. That is another issue. You know, I know that I will be all right with it with Jack's and Barbary, because we're two popular places for food.
You're only a quid anyway, aren't you?
Still only a quid
still going.
Listen,
we'll hold this session. Thank you so much so far. It's been very interesting. More coming up in part 2.